Lifestyle medicine revealing trends. This is a new term, thank goodness. We keep evolving in the field of healthcare. Not long ago, I was one of the keynote speakers at a major European medical conference, and I'll tell you the story. A number of years ago, I became very clear that here in North America, that your government officials were not going to support natural health care, as most of the countries around the world. The lobbyists are too strong from the other side. So when I was over in Europe, in this wonderful country called Lithuania, that only liberated itself in 1991 from Russia, basically they had a sense of enthusiasm, openness, and childlike innocence that I hadn't been around since 1950. It was wonderful. It was refreshing. And I went to the major medical school there, and I challenged the dean of the medical school after he tried to algae me up. We don't use the word butter. He tried to algae me up and say, "You're the greatest, you're wonderful, Hippocrates is great, everything you do is wonderful, you've done 60 years. I said, "Well, if we're so wonderful, why are you teaching the same old medicine here that we're teaching everywhere in the world? Why don't you teach lifestyle medicine?" Now, walking out, I thought, I really feel good saying that, but nothing's going to happen. Well, a week later, I got a call. This is what ethics are. You don't really see much of them, so I'll describe ethics to you and honor to you. And so this guy calls me up and says, "I was thinking about what you said, and yeah, we're going to do it. I'm not sure how we'll do it or how we're going to fund it or if the government will let me do it, but we're going to do it. It's being done. This month, this year, the first lifestyle medicine curriculum for master's level program is being offered in Europe because of the courage that started with Ann Wigmore. Who stood on the stage before I spoke was the Minister of Health of the EU, the man who runs all of the health in the entire European Union. And I literally cried. It was difficult for me to get up and speak because he said, this model will be the sustainable model for all medical schools in Europe in the future. That economically it is not sustainable to make believe that pills take lifestyle problems away. The Minister of Health of the EU. That would be like the President of the United States standing up here at this conference and giving an extraordinary talk on helping humanity. Could you imagine that? It's almost unfathomable to think that somebody would actually want to help you. But that's what they wanted to do there. I spoke. After me, who stood up is Dr. David Kaz, Yale University. He's the current president of America's Lifestyle Medical Doctor Association, where there's 2,500 members of that association, medical doctors who basically are now committed to teaching their patients that lifestyle is the number one medicine. He brought up the latest statistics. Now, these are not challengeable statistics, by the way. And any of you out there listening, especially from the evil empire, try to challenge us on this. We now have empirical evidence, data, that 80% of all diseases can be reversed either in total or in part through lifestyle. Now let me once again repeat what I'm telling you. That 80% of all diseases can either in part or in total be reversed through lifestyle. Now, how do you take a number and a statistic like this out of a guy from Yale, the Minister of Health of the EU, and an institution that's now open, and say that you're in denial? Well, let me tell you something. When normality occurs, it's always challenged. We're at the beginning of normality. And normality will reign, and what is happening here at The Real Truth About Health is going to be mainstream data and information for all people worldwide, and we're not going to stop until that happens. So lifestyle medicine. Nutritional and lifestyle research is emerging as a serious sector of healthcare internationally. As with all science outcomes, they may reveal different results. For this reason, meta-studies are valued. They highlight the commonalities of empirical data. Now, here's the other problem we have in the research community. And many of you are innocent and naive. You don't realize this. Somehow you think that Stanford and Oxford and Yale and Harvard, and they're all beyond reproach. They're all very much reproachable. That who do you think funds studies? And what do you think the objective of most studies are? Well, let me inform you if you haven't ever thought about this. It's somebody who generally runs a corporation that has the millions and millions and millions of dollars it takes, that they actually, when I've challenged this, found out that they put this under marketing budgets. Marketing budgets are where they collect millions of dollars from these corporations to bring to the great institutions of the world. They bring a check in this hand, and they bring a paper in this hand with the result already on the paper. And they say to that institution that here's the result we want. Here's the millions and millions of dollars it's going to take for you with your high credentials, your PhDs, your MDs, your MSs, whatever it may be, for you with your credentials to stamp this result. And that's how research works. Now, there's every once in a while somebody who dies who had a lot of money that leaves money for any kind of research you want to do. There's not that many rich people dying. They seem to stay alive. Why? Because they come to Hippocrates. They eat this way. The rest of you are eating at McDonald's. And so bottom line is, this meta-study is how I started to read. So every day I get up, as I did today and as I will tonight, reading research, the latest research. That's why I can stand here and articulate to you and never, ever, ever step back, because I'm always ready and willing to open and to learn and to improve and to change. And if we're not, we ought not to call ourselves health authorities. We should just call ourselves health frauds. Because if we keep rehashing what we knew yesterday, we're teaching you old, worn out, or even wrong information at that point. So meta-studies are how we really determine what's true and what's not true. So let's imagine you have 50 studies on a particular subject. Now, although they have to manipulate these studies to come out with the result that's written on that paper, remember, here's the millions of dollars, here's the result they want, they have to do some real research, or by default, do some real research in that process anyway. So 50 institutions or groups of people, researchers, have done research, and then when we read this research, which I do all the time, I see the commonalities. What is the one thing that is always apparent in these studies? And that's where you find the truth. There are ever-accumulating results with impressive trends that lead serious lifestyle advocates to be scientifically optimistic for the future of this emerging science. Since 1956 till now, we've dealt with about 600,000 people. So we have done what's called clinical research on people. Now, we call you guests, and we love you, and we want to take care of you, but we also collect data on you. So when you come in, we do blood tests. When you leave, you do blood tests. And if you listen closely, for free, F-R-E-E, for the rest of your life, you send blood tests back and scans back, and our medical team basically reviews them. I'm not sure it's going to work, but about a year ago, I got a call from a woman who works, a researcher at Harvard and Tufts University, and she's trying to appropriate money now. If any of you have the money, if you really want this to go forward, they're looking for $3 million to do long-term research on people who have reversed cancer on the Hippocrates diet, Hippocrates program. So there are some legitimate researchers out there doing it. So here's what we found. Females number 6 to 4 males. Men are catching up a little bit. It used to be when I began this, it was like 1 guy to 9 women. Now, I won't make a social comment on this, but the side of the species that's not my side seems to be a little smarter than my side. Cancer is about 46% of who we've worked with. Cardiovascular disease, 17%. Type 2 diabetes, 15%, and that keeps growing. What they call autoimmune disease, that I challenge, I don't think there's a disease called autoimmune disease. That's the big pot that they throw everything into. They don't know what it is and what to do with, so they call it autoimmune disease. Viral disorders, 4%. Multiple sclerosis, 3%. Parkinson's, 2%. And ALS, 2%. You know, the scary part is the bottom there is growing exponentially. You should see how fast I would hardly see people with MS. How many of you read our recent magazine where 3 people reported reversing multiple sclerosis? Okay. Matter of fact, we have one fellow that lives not far from Hippocrates. He comes and dines, and he stuns the guest all the time because he was told he was dying of multiple sclerosis 30 years ago, and every single month he walks further now. That's what happens when you don't go along with the program. Now, you have to like yourself to not go along with the program. Our objective with our lifestyle medicine program is to educate and support individuals to take responsibility for their life and improve all areas concerning health. Our job is not to heal you. Now, the other fraud I'd like to unveil today to all of you listening, including the alternative doctors listening to me, is that if you're telling people that you cure them, you're lying to them. You're deceptive and you're part of the problem. That nobody cures anyone else. That is magic. We're not conducting magic. We're conducting, if you're legitimate, education. As a matter of fact, if you know where the word doctor came from, it means teacher. How many of you know that? Doctor means the word teacher. I have a close friend that had a revelation. He was a renowned surgeon in Europe and Switzerland. He's almost like a brother of mine now. Back in the 1970s, he realized after being a renowned surgeon, making tons of money, that he didn't really think what he was doing was always as helpful as it should be. Although he did save lives, he was doing a lot of unnecessary surgery. So he actually cried when he realized that he never knew, as a renowned doctor, that he was supposed to be a teacher, and he became a teacher. Our medical team conducts thorough blood analysis at the beginning and end of each person's stay. As graduates, they systematically and periodically send back labs which are accrued and used for ongoing consultations. Now, every once in a while, the Germans came to us 2 years ago. They spent 6 months at Hippocrates, evaluated our data, and they were stunned. They said, "Why don't you publish this?" Because we're an educational institute. We are not a scientific. If I had any more time in my life, I don't know how it would be. I have to sleep. There's something called sleep that, as a human, I wish we didn't have to, but we have to, So I challenge more people like the Germans, more people like this lovely woman from Harvard and Tufts University, to stand up and to move forward for legitimate science, not paid for science. I am willing, I'll say right now to all of you in this room and around the world, to open our science to any legitimate organization that wants to evaluate it for the future of humanity's health care. Because where else in the world can you come to a lifestyle center that has 60 years of data on hundreds of thousands of people? Nowhere. And so people say this is theological, that this is not empirical. I don't know of anything more empirical than human bodies walking around saying, "I'm well" today.